Good morning, everybody. We will be starting the webinar in about 5 minutes. If you have any audio issues, please put them in the chat so that we can troubleshoot. Thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for this webinar where we will discuss opportunities for funding through the Board of Regents Support Fund for the current fiscal year cycle 21-22. I will give a brief presentation and please, the value of this session is largely in the questions that are asked and answered. So please, if you have questions about our programs or our processes, please put them in the chat and I will respond to as many as I can in the time we have available. I will place in the chat the link where you can find a video of this event available about 24 hours after the event, as well as the presentation that I'm giving now. So please note that link if you want access to the presentation. It's the same link that you use to register for this session, so you can also just go back there. So with that, let's get started. I'd like to just start with a brief explanation of what the support fund is and where the funds come from. The support fund is a constitutionally dedicated fund. It is the money that we receive for expenditure is generated from earnings on the Louisiana Education Quality Trust Fund, the Kevin P. Riley Louisiana Education Quality Trust Fund, which is set up in the Constitution. This fund has existed since 1987. And the Constitution frames our programs for post-secondary education as follows. We have two goals. Those goals are to improve the quality of higher education and to enhance economic development. For those of you who have questions as to why our RFPs mention economic development, regardless of the content of the program or the purpose of the program, it's because that is one of our goals set forth in the Constitution. We are permitted to spend money on any or all of the following activities: carefully defined research efforts, endowment of chairs for eminent scholars, enhancement of the quality of academic research or agricultural departments or units within a post-secondary institution, and recruitment of superior graduate students. Everything that we do in all of our programs fits somewhere within these four categories. It's important to note in the enhancement category that our constitutional mission is to support the quality of academic research and agricultural departments and units. This is why we do not support athletics, we don't support general support services, and we don't support administration or operating costs. This is for the enhancement of academic departments and units. Within these four areas, we fund about 10 different programs. About half of these programs are endowment programs, which means a private sector contribution is matched with support fund dollars to establish a corpus that exists in perpetuity. I will not talk very much about the endowment programs today. I will talk primarily about our grant programs. If you have questions about our endowment programs, please reach out to me at any time and I'll be happy to speak with you about them. So what we have is endowed chairs. These are large $1 million plus permanent endowments. Under superior graduate students, we have the endowed graduate scholarships. These are also they're $100,000 plus scholarships in support of any level of graduate study, including postdoctoral fellows. We have our R&D program, which includes 4 different opportunities to support research efforts in all disciplines, STEM disciplines, as well as arts, humanities, and social sciences. And we have our enhancement program, which is comprised of a couple of endowment opportunities. You see those in red: professorships and 2-year workforce scholarships. And as well as our federal matching component, we provide the federal match for EPSCoR programs and other statewide initiatives. And then the departmental enhancement program, which we'll talk about quite a bit today, and the SREB program, which is for doctoral scholars who are connected with the SREB Doctoral Scholars Initiative. Major program changes for those of you who've been around for a while. What are the major program changes for this year that you need to look out for? None. We have not made any significant changes to our programmatic offerings. In terms of the approved budget for 21-22, the budget is approved as part of House Bill 1, as part of the standard budget for the state. Our approved budget this year is $20 million. This does represent a 10% reduction over last fiscal year. The reason for that is decreased revenues to the support fund from the trust fund. We do not control the amount of revenue that we get from the trust fund, so we have to adjust to the estimates that we receive. This reduction, as it were, has already been taken because this is the level that we budgeted at. So when you see the dollars that are cited in RFPs as to available funds, they are based on this budget level. However, the way the support fund works, we earn money throughout the year, and we spend all of the funds that we earn in a fiscal year in April at the end of the year, and we push those monies out of our accounts by the end of the fiscal. That means if something significant changes within the fiscal year in terms of the money we can expect to receive in revenues, we will make adjustments as the year progresses. So if we see a reduction, we will take reductions before we make funding recommendations in April. That's a source of some confusion every year. So I will talk primarily today about grant programs which provide direct support. This means that we contract out the support and we pay the campus, which provides the funds to the PIs and the projects that are selected for funding. In terms of general information about eligibility for support fund programs, all public post-secondary education campuses plus private campuses that are members of Lakeview are eligible. If you are a member of Lakeview and at a private campus, you are eligible. We support all academic and workforce disciplines, though each individual program has a discipline rotation and eligibility restrictions. So you want to check the individual RFPs to determine what's eligible in the current grant cycle. Most of our projects require faculty leadership, but they're submitted through the campus's Office of Sponsored Programs or its equivalent. This means that the individual PI will get a Logan account, will log in and create the proposal, but when that PI submits the proposal, they're submitting to the OSP or its equivalent on the campus. That office has to approve that project for submission to the Board of Regents before it is officially submitted to us. It is a two-step process. Both steps have to be completed on or before the deadline that's published in our RFPs. Endowments are a little bit different. They're submitted by the campus because they are permanent endowments that are usually held by the campus and the foundation. And there are different pre and post award requirements. So again, check the RFPs and check the policies for those if you have questions and reach out to me. All of our funding is public. So all of our funding is subject to disclosure. Most documentation that you submit to the Board of Regents, including proposals, is public record and must be furnished if we get a public records request. So first, we'll talk about departmental enhancement. This is one of our largest programs. It has the largest amount of money available. It also has the broadest eligibility of all of our programs. The program goal of departmental enhancement is to enhance the capacity and quality of high priority departments and academic units. You should think, when you think about departmental enhancement, you should think in terms of how the department that's applying fits within the institutional priorities and the role, scope, and mission. All academic disciplines are eligible in departmental enhancement on a rotating basis. This rotation has changed. It used to be once every 3 years. Now it's 1 year on, 1 year off. Targeted workforce is an eligible discipline and it's eligible every year. What we mean when we say, and I think we've changed the terminology this year from targeted workforce to non-discipline based workforce. What this means is workforce activities that are not part of an academic discipline as otherwise described in the RFP. So workforce areas like construction crafts, welding, aviation, things like that fall under targeted workforce. If you can submit in an academic discipline, you are not in non-discipline-based workforce. There are two different grant types in departmental enhancement. There's comprehensive, which are the big 5-year large-scale awards. These awards are intended to move an academic unit forward in a holistic way. So a large investment to dramatically increase the capacity or quality of the programs offered through the academic unit. These awards are up to 5 years, up to $1 million in total funding. That is total funding across the 5 years. And only one proposal can be submitted per academic unit. We define academic unit not just as academic department, but any unit that's formally constituted on the campus. So if you have a center of excellence, if you have a collaborative academic program that is recognized by your campus as its own unit, then it is eligible to submit on its own authority in comprehensive enhancement. Targeted enhancement is smaller scale awards, which provide focused enhancement for critical unit priorities. So this is more like, for those of you who were around when we had traditional enhancement, this is more like a traditional enhancement award. It's a 1-year award up to $200,000. There's no limit on the number of proposals that a unit can submit, but there's a caveat with that, and that caveat is that when a unit submits multiple proposals, those proposals have to be ranked by the campus before they're submitted to the Board of Regents, so that we can understand how your unit is prioritizing the activities that are being proposed on its behalf. The types of things you can do with enhancement. Enhancement is pretty wide open in terms of things, activities that you think will dramatically increase your capacity and quality within the grant period. You can do infrastructure. This is the most common thing that we do through enhancement. You can buy tools, you can buy equipment, you can buy software, computers, and so forth that either create new capacity for you or expand your current capacity. You can think about New Frontiers projects. What kind of new initiatives are you looking to implement? What kinds of things would you need to pilot? You can think about different kinds of enhancements. How do you advance or change the direction of the work that you already have in progress? Faculty development, opportunities for faculty to learn new skills, learn new approaches. With one important budgetary caveat there, you cannot request funds for faculty to receive additional compensation or pay to learn these new skills and new approaches. What you can do is use the funds to provide those opportunities for faculty. Typically disallowed and undesirable uses. Additional compensation is never permitted in the support fund for Louisiana faculty. Capital expenses are never permitted in the support fund. We cannot do any kind of building. Standard operating costs are not permissible. Supplanting existing resources is forbidden by the Constitution. This includes restoring budget cuts. The other grant subprogram within enhancement is the BOR SREB Doctoral Student Support Program. I'll talk just a little bit about this one. This is fairly minimal in terms of the number of proposals we receive, but it has a fairly large impact. The program goal is to build diversity in the professoriate by recruiting and graduating underrepresented minority PhD students. This program is a partnership with SREB's Doctoral Scholars Program, or DSP. Every student who is funded through this program has to be eligible for DSP and has to follow all of DSP's rules on the SREB side. All campuses with graduate schools and who do graduate training at the doctoral level, the PhD level, not anything, not any professional training at the doctoral level, are eligible for this. Membership in SREB is required for all appointed students. Appointees must meet SREB requirements. The funding, in terms of the funding, we provide $10,000 in student support per year for 3 years, plus $5,000 that has to be forwarded to SREB to provide membership for each student in DSP. The institution is required to match $10,000 in additional support for the student. These are 3-year projects, and each student receives 3 years of funding. Replacement of students should be rare, but is permissible within contracts. So in terms of what the competitions look like, all of our programs are very competitive, but I wanted to show you what last year looked like, with the note that last year was unusual in terms of the support fund, both in enhancement and in R&D. We did not receive the number of proposals we usually receive. Usually we receive around 180 in departmental enhancement. This year you can see we received 119. We don't know if this is a trend or if this was because of COVID, but it led to much higher success rates in our programs. So we received 119, 20 were comprehensive. That's always smaller. 94 were targeted, 5 in SREB. That is a typical number, requesting a total of $15.5 million. Of these, 35 proposals were funded, 3 comprehensive, that's 15%, 21 targeted at 34%, and all of the BOR SREB proposals were funded. The total awarded was almost $4.5 million, or 29% of the total requested. So in terms of success rate, we had about a 30% success rate overall. That's much better than typical. Typically, our success rate in enhancement is between 10 and 15%. So I can't tell you that this is going to be the case again, that we are able to fund so many of the proposals that are submitted on a percentage basis. Our R&D programs, we have 4 programs. They're designed to capture many research-focused disciplines and to cover the spectrum from basic research to industry translational research. So our RCS program is an EPSCoR type program, 1 to 3 year awards to help faculty who are very close to being competitive for federal dollars, help them to overcome barriers and secure federal funding. The total funding for a project is up to $200,000 for multi-year awards. So there are annual caps on that, but it's $200,000 over 3 years, or for a 1-year award up to $20,000. For industrial ties, these are also 1 to 3 year awards. They're for research projects who have industry buy-in. So for an industrial ties project, you have to have an industry partner and they have to provide you with material support that is matched to the project. These projects should have potential for development and diversification of Louisiana's economic base. So having that Louisiana connection or some contribution to Louisiana's economy is very important in ITRS projects. These are fairly large, $350,000 award over 3 years with annual caps. So check the RFP for more information on that. Within ITRS, we have our proof of concept and prototyping program, which is a program designed to help faculty who need support for prototype development or proof of concept awards, including marketing plans for research projects that will have near-term commercialization potential. These are $10,000 to $40,000 1-year projects. And finally, we have Atlas Awards to Louisiana Artists and Scholars, which provide 1-year awards for completion of major projects in arts, social sciences, and humanities, up to $50,000 per faculty member, faculty partner in these awards for 1 year. These awards are special in that they focus on a completion of a major project. We do not fund initial efforts or foundational efforts to establish a research project, but we're looking for something that will be finished within or very soon after the Atlas year. In terms of our R&D competition profile, we had the same experience with R&D that we did it with enhancement. We had a small number, comparatively speaking, of proposals submitted. We had 204 total. We usually are between 250, 275 in R&D. We were able to fund 55 of these projects for a total of $2.5 million, which is 24% of what was requested. The success rate is 27% across R&D. That's unheard of in R&D. I've been with the support fund for 20 years. We've never had success rates this high in R&D. Again, we do not know if this is a trend or if this was a blip in the COVID year. Typically, our success rate ranges from 12 to 18% in R&D programs. Deadlines for submission, this is pure practicality. We have changed 2 deadlines. You see those in red. The notices of intent for RCS and ITRS and POCP was September 13th. It was last Monday. Now it's September 27th. All of the other deadlines are as published and run from October through the end of November, through just before Thanksgiving. The endowment deadlines, if you're interested, are at the beginning of 2022. They're on February 1st for the competitive programs, and endowed professorships is non-competitive, and we received those by March 31st. So with that, I will take the question. I have one question in the chat, and I will take this question before I move on to some general tips for succeeding in support fund competitions. The question I have is, if my enhancement project involves an eligible discipline, but the discipline of the submitting unit falls in an ineligible discipline, can I submit an enhancement program in this cycle? The answer to that question is yes. You can, in all of our programs, eligibility is based on the content of the project and not the department or unit from which it originates. But bear in mind that when an external review panel looks at a proposal, they're going to notice the misalignment of the submitting department and the project. So you'll want to be very clear in the proposal as to why the project is housed where it is. So you can absolutely do it, but you need to get ahead, and this is going to be part of the tips for succeeding in competitions. You need to get ahead of any questions like that external panels might have about why you're doing what you're doing and things that represent a disconnect in their thinking about these kinds of projects. So with that, succeeding, regardless of whether you look at the current success rates or previous success rates in support fund programs, our process is highly competitive for a state program like this. So how do you approach a highly competitive process? First, don't be discouraged if you don't get funding the first time out. You have to be persistent. You should apply early and often. You should learn from experience. Always read the reviewer comments that come to you, even when you think that they're unfair or they've misunderstood what you're trying to do. Try to learn from that experience and figure out what you can do to make that better. And sometimes that is, as with the question that I just addressed, sometimes that's a matter of figuring out where you haven't explained as clearly as you could questions that arose as they read your proposal. Awareness, you've got to know what opportunities are out there. You can't win if you don't play. You have to know how competitive they are. This is an issue that we face quite often, that understanding that programs are funding at a rate of 25% is really important to how you position yourself in that competition. Understanding that you have to know what the rules are, you have to follow the rules, you have to speak to the goals of the program. If you don't do those things, you are not going to compete when we're funding at a rate of 25%. You have to know what kind of projects work. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about this. This is not necessarily about we fund projects that are in this topic area. This is more about how you structure your project and how you structure your outcomes. And finally, really important, ask questions if you have them to our program managers. Our program managers are here to help. We have one-on-one session signups available on our website now. You can go in and sign up for a time. The R&D signups are already done. There are still some enhancement times left, but we're always here and we're always available. If you have a question, our email addresses are available to you, and I'm going to post them at the end of this session. But you can also call us up, pick up the phone. We are always happy to talk to potential applicants. Third, obedience. Make sure you follow the rules. Our rules exist for a reason, but it's also the first thing that the reviewers look at. We send them the RFPs, they look at the rules, they look at the goals of the programs, and they look for alignment with what you're proposing to the rules that we have set forth. So making sure that you're following the rules and not assuming that your idea is so good that you don't need to follow the rules is extremely important. And finally, empathy. Understanding what every party to this transaction, and it is a transaction, wants and needs. We have needs, you have needs, your campus has needs. Knowing what those are is really important. What you're striving for is balance among the elements in writing your proposal. You are the applicants are the stakeholders. You are the ones who are on the ground, who are going to get the direct benefit from this funding. So knowing what your needs are and what the benefits to you will be, projecting out what it will look like to succeed if you get this funding is critically important. But putting that in the context of departmental priorities, campus priorities, opportunities for growth is also really important. So knowing how you fit in the larger scheme of your institution and your department, very important. And finally, looking, and we publish all of these in our RFPs, looking at the priorities of our programs and the objectives of our programs is a key to success, making sure that our programs are getting what they need to succeed. A good proposal and a work plan will encompass 3 different timescales. Before funding, this is where you align the idea, you figure out how it fits within all of the goals that we just talked about, and this is where you document and support your arguments for need and value. You thought about why this is important and what you need, and here is a very clear and concise description of what we need and why. The proposal should address what's going to happen during the project, how the work will proceed, what its impact will be, not only at the end, but while the project is ongoing, and what successful will look like. When we come back at the end of a grant, when you submit your final report, what are we looking for to know that this project succeeded? And then you should also think and write clearly about what will happen after the project. What are the consequences of project completion? What are going to be the outcomes? But also, really important, particularly for enhancement, how are you going to sustain activities post-award? So if you're asking us to purchase a $200,000 piece of equipment, how will that investment be sustained? If that equipment needs upgrades, if that equipment needs repair, maintenance, how are you going to sustain these activities after short-term funding is exhausted? The more concrete, realistic, and detailed you can be in these plans for sustainability, the better it is for you. The more that the external consultants can see that this is a good investment, not just an investment for the short term, but an investment over multiple years, that will put you in very good stead. You always need to remember in writing proposals that you're writing for external reviewers. You're not writing for me, who is in Louisiana and reads these things for 20 years. You're writing for people who are in other states, who are experts in their field, and who are not necessarily aware of everything that's happening on your campus or in the state. So making sure that you know the program goal, the guidelines, and the scoring rubric, that's what they're going to be using to look at your proposal. Make sure you provide strong arguments that are rooted in purposes, goals, and objectives of the funding. That gets back to why we are funding and what they're looking at in terms of how the funding works. Explanation of the context and priorities of your campus department or profession so that they understand how this project fits within the context in which it will actually be implemented. Make sure you demonstrate knowledge of the state of the art in the subject area and how your project fits within the state of the art. They are experts in their fields, they're experts in your fields, and they're looking for the state of the art. And then make sure any data you have that can provide context and show need, impact, and long-term value, that you've presented that thoroughly and clearly so that an external reviewer can see at a glance why this investment is important. Winning the competitions, it really comes down to 3 things to win the competitions. As I said, it doesn't come down to finding out whether panels, generally prefer a book project versus journal projects, or this kind of biological sciences research versus that kind of biological sciences research. It's really about showing alignment with both the state needs and the campus and unit priorities, emphasizing need, impact, quality, and sustainability, all 4 of those things. Why do you need it? What is it gonna do? How does it improve the situation? And how is it gonna be sustained long-term? And finally, anticipating questions, concerns, and challenges. Panels come in with a set of expectations. Each individual reviewer has a set of expectations, as we all do, making sure that you've anticipated what kind of concerns they're going to have about your project, what kind of questions are going to come up. For example, the question about why would this department be submitting a proposal for a project that is actually in another discipline? Anticipating those questions, answering them on the front end shows reviewers that you are thoughtful about this, you are aware of all of the implications of your project, and you know what it will take for the project to succeed. keep forgetting which one is running the slides. Post-award requirements. This is just if you win an award, what is going to happen next? An award generates a contract between the Board of Regents and the campus. The contract will require that the contractor comply with reviewer stipulations. And what that means is you will get a write-up of your project from the external consultants. That write-up might say, we recommend the following be funded of the budget request. We don't recommend these elements be funded. That becomes a stipulation, and you have to follow that. If they say you have to maintain institutional match or external match, if that's required, that becomes a stipulation and must be in the contract. You will be required to submit a detailed budget and budget justification. These are checked carefully by our staff and returned to you if we see issues. The support fund pays in advance. So we will pay for 1-year awards. We will pay 100% once the contract is processed. For multi-year projects, we do keep a retainage, but we pay the majority of the funds in advance for every kind of project. Our annual and final project, we have annual and final project reports. We also have financial reports. So you will expect when you sign that contract that you have annual reporting responsibilities as well as final to the Board of Regents. And then you can make major changes. The contract specifies processes for making major changes to projects. These are often subject to Board of Regents approval. So if you need changes to the project scope, to the budget, to personnel, you'll need to submit those forward to the Board of Regents for approval, but they are possible. For more information, everything is available on our website. Everything that I've just gone through, you can access with the click of a mouse. I've given you 3 different pages. One is our main page, web.laregents.org. The programs page will give you capsule summaries of all of the funding opportunities in the support fund, as well as links to program manager email and the RFPs. And the RFPs policies and forms page gives you all of the RFPs, policies, and forms that are relevant for current support fund competitions. Below, you'll see listed the program managers for each program. Please feel free to reach out to us by email, by phone. We are always available to answer questions and talk to you about your projects. You can call the main Regents line 342-4253 to reach any of us, and we will be happy to talk to you. Also, for your convenience, we have a Q&A list. We post any questions that we receive that are generally applicable to the RFPs. We post them in real time. So as we get questions that are relevant to the competitions, we will post them on our Q&A page by program. You can access the page at the link that you see. You can also access it through the RFPs and forms page of our website. For technical issues, every proposal that's submitted to the support fund has to be submitted through our online grants automation network, Logan. If you have issues with Logan, with setting up an account, with accessing your account, with uploads, any technical questions dealing with Logan, this should be helpdesk@laregents.edu. And Karthik will put that email address in the chat. But you can also email support@laregents.org. It will bounce to our new help desk system. But for technical questions only, email that address. Everything else, reach out to program managers and check the Q&A pages to access information. And that's all I have. I will be more than happy to answer any questions. Please put your questions in the chat. I do see a question about PowerPoint availability. If you check the chat, you'll see that link again. The PowerPoint is already up. I put it up before this session. The video for this session will be available within 24 hours and will be posted on our YouTube channel. Links for both are in the announcement that you use to register for this session. All right, I have a question. If an enhancement proposal involves out-of-state faculty participating in a project with a Louisiana faculty member, can funds still be spent on lab materials that would be housed out of state for use in a national in-scope project? This is a good question. Typically, it depends on what the materials are. Consumables, we don't track the location of consumables. There would not necessarily be an issue with purchasing consumables for a faculty partner who is out of state. Equipment and supplies such as laptops, for most campuses that is classified as a supply, printers, and so on. No, if it is something that your institution would tag, it has to stay at the institution that tags it. This is also, by the way, true for any education programs that work with K-12 schools. There are two aspects of the support fund. One is K-12, and it's run through BESI. The other is the higher ed, which is run through, obviously, Board of Regents. Because there are two different pots of money through the support fund, our money can only be expended on higher ed. BESI's money can only be expended on PK to 12. And we cannot, through the support fund, purchase equipment and supplies for K-12 schools. We can purchase equipment and supplies to be owned by the campus and loaned, but we cannot purchase them for ownership by K-12 schools. Another question about RCS. For RCS grant collaborations with multiple universities, are they encouraged? Yes. Now, RCS is an EPSCoR style program. It is generally single investigator, but can have multiple co-PIs as well as multiple other collaborating faculty. But you will want to be very clear about how partnerships work and how collaborations among faculty groups are going to work, because this is about positioning faculty members to become competitive for federal dollars over the short term. Okay, I don't see any other questions. I will give you a couple more minutes to put questions in the chat. And if I don't see any more, I would once again encourage you to reach out to program managers. At any time, we have a Q&A period that ends on October 15th. So any questions that you can ask before October 15th, that's best. If you have questions after October 15th, I strongly recommend that you check the Q&As on our website. We have Q&As in the live list. We have Q&As going back 3 or 4 years, but we also have an archive of 30 years. This program has been in existence since 1987. We have 30 years of questions that are banked on the website that you can reference. I have another question about purchasing. Let me see. Let's see. Does a departmental enhancement project have to include the purchase of equipment? No, it does not. That is the most common thing that's requested, but it's not required that you request equipment through a departmental enhancement award. For departmental enhancement, discuss good project ideas and good impact. Departmental enhancement really runs the gamut. Good project ideas, we've had everything from purchase of a $200,000 piece of equipment that will transform or allow a department to reach state of the art in a research area is a good example of research departmental enhancement project that's of high quality and will often get funded. Other kinds of projects are curriculum redesign projects, tend to be successful. Let me think. New lab projects, particularly undergraduate labs, bringing those labs up to state of the art, even addressing safety concerns in those labs. Those tend to be very successful. What I would suggest you do, if you go to our webpage, you can access consultant reports since 2004. You can read through those reports and see what was successful in each program, what kinds of projects were funded, what kinds of criticisms the panels had about the projects that were funded. And then you can also request to see successful proposals. If you ever want to see a proposal that was submitted in a previous cycle, there's a process that's outlined on our website. You just need to email the help desk and tell us what you want to see, and we will put those in a Dropbox folder and send those over to you within 24 hours. Okay. Right. You mentioned that applying early makes us competitive. Did I get that right? I was using a colloquialism. Applying early and often just means apply as to as many opportunities as you want to apply to. Submitting before the deadline makes no difference. Our panels don't see anything before the deadline. In fact, we can't do our work until the deadline's passed, which is why when we're asked about extensions, particularly at times like this, when we have multiple natural disasters, when we were asked about extensions to program deadlines, we generally can accommodate them only minimally because our timeline, believe it or not, is fairly tight. Getting proposals in late October, early November, getting panels engaged and getting reviews completed by the end of February, beginning of March is actually a really tight timeline. I can't find the PowerPoint presentation on the chat. Karthik has provided the link to that. You have to follow the link to get to the presentation. Okay, I don't see, let's see, I don't see any other questions. If there are no other questions, then yes. All right, so we have found the PowerPoint. And if there are no other questions, then I hope everyone has a great day, and please reach out to us as things occur to you as you read through the RFPs. Thanks so much for your time.